Hey guys, Casual Gamer 84. Welcome back to the game room. I have a video today for you all about controllers. Stick around. Alright guys, so you all may be thinking, why is he talking to us about controllers? Well, to be honest, I have no good answer at all. It's just something that I got to thinking of, and what controller do I prefer when I'm playing a video game, or what controller fits my hand the best, what controller is most comfortable, what controller am I most nostalgic for, things like that. So to kick this off, we're just gonna kind of go back in time with the first controller that I would assume that I played with, or the oldest in the systems that I was aware of as a kid, and that is the Atari. Granted, it is not a controller; it's a joystick. You have one button, but it got the job done for what it was. I'm not real nostalgic for the Atari, so the controller is really not nostalgia inducing to me at all. So I just have several around in case I need to play Atari from time to time. But the one that I probably have had in my hands the most is the NES controller, the Nintendo Entertainment Center controller. This is perfection. There's no other way to put it. The D-pad's amazing. The tactile feel of the buttons is amazing. I've probably held this controller more than, not this particular one, but this style controller more than any other controller that I could potentially think of. The next one that I've probably spent about as much time with as that one is the SNES controller. And this one, you got shoulder buttons, you got 4 face buttons, so you got the X, Y added to the A and B mix. The D-pad is still really good. Everything's very familiar with this controller. It's more rounded, more ergonomic in the hand. So it is, as far as classic consoles go, it's up there with my favorite controllers. So the next one, I may have played with it occasionally as a kid, but it actually came out after the Super Nintendo controller, and that is the NES Dogbone controller. Again, more rounded shape. A and B buttons are on an angle, a lot like the SNES controller. They're just centered on there. Same D-pad. It's okay. It's not bad. They're getting harder to find and more expensive to find. So the next one, which completely threw me for a loop, and probably a lot of you all as well. I would assume the majority of you are around my age. So going from, an SNES controller with a Nintendo at least, to this thing. No one knew what to do. You really didn't know how to hold it. Do I hold it here? Do you use the joystick? Do I hold it here? Do you use the D-pad? You had C buttons. What's that all about? Shoulder button. You had a trigger button. So it's definitely a different controller. I refer to this as the Trident controller. But after you get used to it, it's actually a pretty good controller. I spent a lot of time with this. Of course, Legend of Zelda fan, Ocarina of Time, and some other really really fun games. And I really got used to it. And it kind of is what shaped, the controllers that you have today. I'll pull up a aftermarket controller. Got the 8-bit SN30 Pro Plus, and if I take that off, it's very, very reminiscent of that controller. Fewer face buttons, but the feel is really, really similar. So it was just really different. Not one of my favorites though, just because if you don't use it and you try to go back to it, there's a learning curve there. So if we leave, actually let's just continue on Nintendo for now. The next one was the GameCube controller. The layout on it, and it feels good. The only thing that I don't like about it is how small the D-pad is on the GameCube controller. But you mean you don't use it a lot in the GameCube games. Of course, your C buttons are now a Joy-Con, and you have your 4 face buttons, triggers, and your Z button. But it does fit good, feels good in the hand, holding it. The buttons are all easy to get to and easy to remember the layout of them. Again, one of my favorites, but not my favorite. So we're going to leave. Actually, before we leave, what's your favorite Nintendo branded controller, retro style controller? Drop that down below. Let me know. I'm curious to know. So leaving Nintendo, you had the Sega Genesis 3-button controller. I didn't have a Sega Genesis growing up. I did rent one from a video store a few times and played it. That's something that we used to do back in my day when we didn't get one. It would, $10, $15, $20, whatever it was. You get it for a few nights and get a game with it and go play it. The D-pad was different. You had 3 buttons. What I did not like about the controller is fighting games, Eternal Champions being one of them, if I'm not mistaken. One of the first ones that I played on the Sega Genesis is, since you only have 3 buttons, you have to switch. And I don't like that. So Sega said, you know what, we can fix that. And they came out with the 6-button controller. I much prefer the 6-button controller to the 3-button controller. It's just, a lot easier, a lot simpler. You don't have to, switch high kick, low kick, and all that good jazz. You got all your buttons right there. So yeah, good controller. Very similar in shape. It's a little smaller, but very similar in shape. So we move in to more modern stuff. Well, I guess say modern, but I guess the 64 and the PlayStation was out at about the same time. We get into PlayStation, and then I don't actually have a OG PS1 controller handy. Just think this PS3 controller without the analog sticks. And that's what you got. It was okay. I mean, I played a lot of games like that, and then they introduced the analog, which looks just like this controller. It was just gray. There's several other variations of it too. Added the analog function to it. And then in PS2, they did not change that. It stayed the same. They added rumble to it. And then PS3, they didn't change the layout. All they did was made it cordless, so put a battery in it. And it pretty much stayed the same. So, an iconic controller. Very familiar, I guess, going from PS1, PS2, PS3. Everything's very familiar for you. So I kind of enjoy that controller. I don't have a PS4 controller to kind of show the progression. It hasn't changed a whole lot. I do have my modded PS4 controller where you have the joysticks or the analog, the joysticks are the same spot. D-pad is still the same. You do have a touchpad on this one. Your buttons are the same. Triggers are a little more ergonomic on it. If you've not seen my video on this, I think I did a video on this. I think it's called Horror Party. Custom shell I did with back buttons. on it for the PS4. So then you get into the PS5, and at first I didn't know that it was going to feel so much more different because it looks very similar. The PS4, you have touchpad, joysticks side by side, split D-pad, and your triggers feel, I guess, as far as like finish go, very similar. They look very similarly shaped. They are different because they have haptic feedback in it. But the way that the grips on the PS5 controller swoop down, I like those. It feels good in the hand. It's a nice controller. I like it. I wish it felt a little more premium. It does feel premium, but I think Sony could have stepped it up a little bit on the overall finish and feel of the controller. So just like we did with the Nintendo, hit me up in the down below. Let me know what your favorite Sony controller is. Do the same for Sega Genesis. I didn't mention that, but just let me know what your favorite controllers are. Then Xbox. See, so growing up, I didn't have like an Xbox and a PlayStation. I either had an Xbox or a PlayStation. So there's some generations I didn't get to play, brand new or like launch day and things like that. I had to wait, sell one and get another, so on and so forth. So I was a bit older when I got my first Xbox. I actually think I had already graduated high school when I got my first Xbox. And you had this monstrosity, the Duke. I do not like this controller at all. I've never really liked the controller. I don't like the convex and concave thumbsticks. I don't like the black and the white button. I just don't like the layout of it at all. The D-pad is horrible on it, and just the feel. It's a thick boy. I don't like it. It's not my favorite. They do have a slim version of this or an S version of this. I've got one somewhere. I couldn't find it for the video. I do much prefer it, but I still don't like that layout. Then we moved into the Xbox 360. I like this controller as far as modern controllers go. I prefer the offset thumbsticks to the Sony's side-by-side. It's just more ergonomic for me. I never liked the D-pad on the 360. But the overall feel of the controller and everything is very familiar with it. I also liked what Microsoft did with the buttons to where it's just, having a shape on it. This is the color. The whole button's the color. So you immediately know X is blue, Y is yellow, red is B, A is green. And you know exactly where that button is at all times. But definitely liked the 360 controller. And then it didn't change a whole lot, but it changed a little going into the Xbox One. But everything's pretty much the same. The overall shape is a little different. I prefer the feel of the Xbox One controller over PlayStation 4 controller. It probably goes back to the offset thumbsticks again. D-pad's a little better on this one than it is on the 360. Overall, I like it. Then I guess modern Nintendo with the Switch. Are you a Pro Controller? I love my Pro Controller. Again, I think it goes back to the offset sticks. D-pad's decent on it. Or are you a Joy-Con person? I played with my Joy-Cons for years, even in the little grip thing, and it worked fine. I had a cheap aftermarket controller, but then, boy, when I bought a Pro Controller, there was no turning back after that. And then my newest controller that I bought that didn't come with a console. So the newest one that I've got is my PS5. But the one that I did not purchase with the console would be the Xbox Elite Series 2 controller. With the programmable back paddles. Just the premium feel of this. Your triggers are metal, your joysticks are metal. You've got the removable thumbsticks on it, so you can change the length of it. Concave, convex. And at first I did not like the little little disc here. I much preferred the having a D-pad. But after playing for a while, I kind of like that disc. It's just easier for me to get the feel, the texture, just the premiumness of the Elite controller. It's a really good controller, as it should be for $160 or whatever it cost. But the fact that it's all programmable within the console settings, fact that it comes with a little case, I just pop it in and it charges. It's probably my favorite modern controller. So now I'm going to hit you with, what is your favorite controller of all time? And mine is probably the NES controller. I prefer just old school rectangle NES controller or 2 buttons, especially, if I'm playing any NES game. I think that the reason that I prefer it is because just the amount of time that I used it. It's a nostalgia thing. Mike Tyson's Punch Out, just having the fingers locked and doing what you need to do. It's, I don't know. I don't know if it's nostalgia inducing or if my hands have over the years just gotten used to that shape. The simplicity of having 2 buttons side by side. That this is B, this is A. The roll that you have to do with your thumb. Everything just lays the way it needs to be. Favorite controller of all time is the NES controller. So hit me down below with your favorite controller. It can be different than mine. That's fine. We can have different opinions. In fact, hopefully we do. That's what makes us unique. Favorite modern controller, Series Elite controller. Favorite retro controller, NES. Guys, that's all about controllers. Thanks for watching. If you don't hit that subscribe button. If you like the content, hit that like button and ring that bell for notifications. You'll be notified when I post a video for you. Guys, what's your controller? Until next time.